Hi everyone, and welcome to Project Peak Performance. This episode, myself, Alex, Dave, we're going to talk about kids, not in a strange way, but we are going to talk about kids and our kids in particular, and how we are, I guess, trialing some sort of like Project Peak Performance exclusive tests with our kids on their diet. I've not started this off with it sounding that great, actually, have I? I've kind of really made it sound a bit strange, but it is going to be a really good
Definitely going to
episode.
listen now.
Yeah, people are listening. What are these guys up to? Um, but I think it's going to be really important. So, I mean, we spoke on a review recently about a trial that I was doing, and I think I was only about 3 or 4 days into it, where I was struggling with the behavior of, in particular, more the 7-year-old than the 3-year-old. And I kind of just felt that having a sugary led breakfast was potentially causing a few hiccups, because what I noticed is my kids wake up in a lovely mood in the morning, and then we quickly rush them downstairs for breakfast. And after they've kind of sat down at the table and they've had their breakfast, and we're kind of 45 minutes into the day, it's time to then get a little bit more hectic, get teeth brushed, get hair brushed as well, get the school uniform on, and then the whole madness of trying to get to school on time and get the nursery drop done kicks in. And that little window there was causing a real problem with listening, responding, doing as they were told, acknowledging the instructions. And I kind of decided to chat to the wife about it, and we thought, right, let's test pilot this. So we took all the cereals out of the cupboard, got rid of them, and brought a different set of diet plan to the morning breakfast, which I then shared with you guys. And I think over the last probably 3 or 4 weeks, we've all been probably a little bit more hyper focused of what we're putting in our kids' bellies, especially in the morning. And we felt it would be a really good episode to share with everyone, because we know that most of our listeners and our watchers are people that have got kids of some age bracket, and they're trying to juggle that balance of professionalism, fitness, family life, etc. as we go forward. So yeah, looking forward to getting stuck into this. Alex, you said to me pretty quickly actually that you'd done the same thing with your kids, and your kids are similar age to mine, I think, as well. So and I've got daughters, and obviously you kind of were talking about your son and how that's impacted with him. So let's start off by yourself and how you found things that you've been testing.
Yeah, I think it really was something on my mind at the time, and I've got two boys, 7 and 5 years old, and a girl that's 2, and generally the day to day would be sugar puffs, Weetabix, Cheerios, some kind of chocolate incarnation of Cocoa Pops or whatever it may be, and I would quite quickly see one bowl wasn't enough. Certainly the eldest would always go and get that second bowl or sometimes third bowl. Probably a bit of the taste, a bit of that sort of, feeling of goodness afterwards, and maybe a bit of a jump in energy. So, yeah, I've always been mindful of nutrition, and I grew up in a household where we had a lot of sort of fresh stuff, and nutrition was sort of quite key as well. So it never sat well with me going and seeing people grab that second or third bowl of sugary breakfast, and it just quite quickly changed the dynamic of making sure again that they were sort of not an option. Fruit. So basically for 4 weeks, I'd say, we've sort of had a variety of cut up fruit, often 3 different types of fruit chopped up on a sort of one of those chopping boards, taken to the middle of the table, leave it out for them to pick at, and then each kid would have their own bowl of yogurt, so natural yogurt, and then they can almost be in control of whether they want 2 of the 3 or 1 of the 3, and sort of be in control of adding fruit to their yogurt. And then I think the biggest benefit has actually been us sitting down as a family for breakfast every morning and spending 20 to 30 minutes, opening up some questions, having a chat, finding out about what they've got planned for the day at school and things like that. So actually from a sit down, pause, talk, and be a family point of view, there's been huge benefits on that front. And then the other side of it is, maybe a little bit more level in terms of the temperament But my two boys are incredibly active and lively and playing sport every single day, so they've got quite a lot of energy, and they've still had that. But maybe some of the sort of naughtiness has soothed a little bit, and causing terror and the flip outs of emotion, maybe that's got a little bit better. But I still think there's improvements for us to make. We've got to the point where it's fruit and yogurt, and we probably need more variety. We need to add things to it and give another two or three options on the table, because like with anything, it can get a bit samey, and you need a balanced diet as well. So we've made the jump, but need to do more and need to add some variety to it. How
Interesting.
how does that differ to yours? I mean, what was the sort of pre-diet versus where it got to, or where it's got
Very,
to?
very, very similar. Like Cheerios and Cocoa Pops were kind of probably the two go-to cereals. My kids love pancakes as well. Absolutely love pancakes. I've got a big pack from Costco, which you can just, blend with some water or milk, and you're good to go. Like you can make amazing American pancakes so quickly. So normally I do that. I've always done that on the weekend. It's like my thing with them. I don't eat breakfast, but typically on a Sunday, Daddy does pancakes, and then I'll sit and eat them with them. Even though I don't want to, it's more the family experience than it is the dietary part for me. So that was our mix, and obviously toast was a simple go-to. And found the kids getting really fussy on the toast as well, that they wanted specific white toast, that they, because my wife is not a fan of brown bread, so they must have murmured it somewhere, and all of a sudden that nothing with seeds in, it had to be white. So it was really high on like folic acid. It was probably really high on preservatives as well. Cheerios, they stay pretty fresh for like a year. That worries me a little bit in its own right.
Yeah.
All of these little things, and kind of when we stripped it right back, we kind of just binned all of it, and we went, right, let's just go on the fruit. So bananas, berries, strawberries and blueberries, grapes, and then we even dropped out the normal bread for sourdough and sourdough bread. And I'm happy for them to have the white sourdough bread, and you can actually get some of the sourdough bread which is quite high in protein as well, so you can, if you really want to feel like you need that little bit of extra substance to their diet. Like for example, my 7-year-old on a Tuesday has swimming in PE, and then has swimming lessons at 4:30. And I think I've shared before, but she has an iron deficiency. So for her, that's like quite a big day, a full day of school, two lots of swimming. Um, and we try and make sure that Tuesdays she has porridge, and we try and make sure that the protein and the good nutritious meal is in there, the Monday night and the Tuesday, just to sort of power her through that day. So yeah, we found the sourdough, half a banana, strawberries, apples, blueberries, that sort of stuff, oranges. Just mix it up throughout the week, but typically substance of fruit with a couple of small slices of sourdough, and that seems to be the win. We have a much better experience in the morning by doing that. Same applies for the porridge. Yeah, I still don't really see too many. Porridge marginally, I'd say we still sometimes there's a little kick off, especially if they have some honey in there. I find the porridge sometimes has a little bit of a kick off, but that just could be, it might not be diet related. It might just be a bad day. We've also noticed that if I give my 7-year-old an instruction and don't hear my wife also give her an instruction at the same time, so they get two sets of messages of things they need to do, that just will instantly turn a meltdown on.
Yeah.
If it's like someone downstairs says, "Can you find your shoes?" and I'm upstairs and I say, "Can you brush your teeth?" Like the world could explode in that one moment. It's like an atom bomb has just hit the hallway. So it's also understanding the communication as well as the dietary stuff. So that's what we've been finding. Dave, you're big on this stuff, and I know you deep dive into it. So how about yourself? For your own experience and obviously family as well.
Yeah, so mine started more so with myself. There's a good and bad thing that happens with me. So I got diagnosed years ago with an inflammatory condition. I suffer with gout all over. It was something that I had for a very long time, and I'm now pretty much, touch wood, pretty clear of it. It does still show its head from time to time, but when it does, you can pretty much guarantee that I've not been on my game for the previous days before. I have been on holiday with the boys, or something's happened and I come back and something kicks off. So that's the downside. The good side is I'm really, really sensitive to things. So I can pick up when something is bad and it affects me. I can start to feel the inflammation start to happen. So I'm like a walking tester for how healthy foods are. And I'm not to say that I'm, I test them all, because maybe I've got intolerances to certain things which kick off, and that could be true. But one of the things that I realized is, after speaking to our friendly nutritionist, and spending a good time with Dimitri and understanding about the foods and what was going on, my diet dramatically changed. I mean, I cut out everything, and I mean everything. For me, one of the biggest players was sugar, which I do believe is predominantly the cause for most bad diets as well, to be honest. And to understand what is sugar, what foods is it in, what type of sugar is it, and how much really should we be having or not having, and it's causing a problem. So what I soon realized was a lot of the diet that we had in our house was quite sugar laden. There was a lot of carb in there. There was a lot of other different things. I'm rambling on a little bit. I'm trying to give a bit of a backstory as to how I've come up with this conclusion and why we do what we've done. So we're ahead now. We've got 4 weeks, for maybe a bit longer than that, actually, with Harley. I think we've been trying this for about maybe 7 or 8 weeks. We've tried. He just started boxing, and we could tell we'd added something into his regime. He was a bit more tired, but we noticed. He's also, by the way, 12, so he's probably going through changing into being a man, and there's a lot of other things going on at the same time. So we really, really need to try and manage this as best as we possibly can do. But we just noticed he wasn't erratic. He was more down and lethargic than anything else, which then turned to frustration when other things were happening, when he needed to get going, when he needed to do something in the mornings. We looked at his diet and we pretty much changed it. We changed it quite drastically. So we cut out all sugar. We cut out anything processed at all. We cut out bread. So basically, we went on what is known as pretty much a carnivore diet, which, to make it easier for the listeners, it's dead simple. If you can't pick it off a tree or kill it, don't eat it. So anything that comes in a packet, you can't eat at all. And that was mainly to make things a lot easier, because we knew if we restricted a lot of this other stuff, then we kind of knew we were just getting pure ingredients. And I wanted to see what happened if we were to cut all of this out. What happened to me, my body, what happened to my brain, what happened to the kids, everything else. And honestly, it was just dramatic what happened. Inflammation dropped within days. It maintained dropped. Energy levels were up. We're eating a lot less food than we were before, probably about 60% in quantity to what we were eating before. Moods were different. The body just seemed to work, and everything was absolutely fantastic. So we've been doing that with Harley, and it's, again, dramatically changed his mood, his energy levels. He's really getting on with boxing. His schoolwork has improved. And now we know, I'm not a really, really bad dad. I know I'm trying to do the best thing here, but I also don't want to be tight either. So Harley probably had, honestly, maybe 2, maybe 3 McDonald's a week, or something very similar when we're out and about, one at a weekend, maybe one on a Friday night or something like that. That's gone. He's allowed 1 a week now. And he can pick when he wants it. And he picks it always on a Friday night after boxing, because he knows he's going to be starving. He says, "Oh, can I have it then, Dad?" "Of course you can, mate. Of course you can." And that's where we are. But yeah, I've got strong opinions on food and how we should be living and how it's causing all chronic diseases and everything else. And I can't wait to jump into it with you guys on this. But yeah, that's been my experience to date, and why we tried it in the first place.
I've got the list here from the NHS of foods to avoid giving babies and young children.
Yeah.
So I'll scan through them. Salt, avoid salty foods like bacon, sausages, chips with added salt, crackers, crisps, ready meals, takeaways. Sugar, avoid sugary snacks and drinks, including fruit juice and other fruit drinks, to prevent tooth decay.
Mm-hmm.
Saturated fat. Do not give your child too many foods that are high in saturated fat, such as crisps, biscuits, and cakes.
Mm-hmm.
Honey. Occasionally, honey contains bacteria that can produce toxins in a baby's intestines. So I think people are aware of honey and kind of kids that are under 1. Whole nuts and peanuts, I think, is allergy related. Some cheeses, again, being careful with obviously babies and blue cheeses and stuff like that. But many cheeses are made from unpasteurized milk. It's better to avoid these because of the risk of listeria. Raw and lightly cooked eggs, which is obvious. Rice drinks. Kids under 5 should not have rice drinks as a substitute for breast milk. Interesting. I mean, we give our kids whole milk. I don't know about you guys. I'm happy for them to have the full shebang. Raw jelly cubes. Who remembers making jelly with your mum where you just eat the jelly cube like a fruit pastel?
Yeah.
Loved that shit.
Yeah, I did as well. Super sweet.
Yeah. But apparently raw jelly cubes, you have to be careful with those. As a choking hazard. Okay. Right. Just chew them. Raw shellfish, shark, swordfish, and marlin. That's the NHS. That is the dietary page for the NHS.
I better cut out the lobster for the 2-year-old for breakfast then. That's gone.
No swordfish.
That's it. Can I just tell you something? Did you know? So here's the other thing. So I've got a funny feeling that most people have got a really good idea of what's good and what's bad for them. I think we try to ignore it a hell of a lot of the time. But do you know what really shocked me? Was my experience when I went to the NHS with the issues I was having. Basically, I had gout. Now, I feel that I can say this being the person that this happened to, and what I believe should have happened, and what actually happened. So I'm going to give you a little story. I goes in, see the doctor. I've got big inflamed knee. I've not got a clue what's going on with it. Tried a few blood tests, couldn't figure it out. Eventually, I went to see a specialist, knee doctor, sorted it out. And when they did the keyhole operation, he basically said, look, we've actually took samples from inside and you've got gout inside your knee. That's actually what's causing the problem. No problem. Now I know what it is. I can try and rectify it. Goes to the doctors. The doctor said, okay, yeah. Oh, this is chronic gout. It's probably been inherited and you've got it for life. Take these tablets every single day and you won't have the problem. And they explained it to me like this. The problem is you either can't process the uric acid or you're producing too much of it. And what this tablet does is it stops you producing uric acid. Okay. I don't know what uric acid does, but if the body produces it, I'm quietly confident there's a fucking need for it somewhere down the line. Otherwise, it wouldn't do it. What they did then is they put me on these tablets. Now, I took the tablets. What the tablets did for me and the doctor's diagnosis, it actually put me in a box. And this box was that I've got this. There's nothing I can do about it. I was born with it, but it's all right. I've got a tablet and I can crack on. So he starts taking the tablets. What else happened? I kept drinking exactly what I was drinking before. I kept eating exactly what I was eating before. I kept just cracking on with everything that I did. And the problems never went away. They got worse. I subsequently found out that NHS GPs don't even take a nutritionist course before they get passed and are allowed to practice in a general practitioner's. So any of the doctors you speak to, they don't even know what to eat. They've got no idea. That was a shock. Secondly, what they could have done is they could have said, Dave, can we have a look at your diet, see what we're going through? How much exercise are you having? How much are you getting out? Explain to me your life so that we can see if we can, holistically approach this. That never happened. What they should have said was, Dave, you're drinking far too much. You're taking drugs. You're eating like an absolute buffoon. And if you carry on, you're going to kill yourself. I'm going to give you some tablets for the next 3 months to help with the pain. However, if you don't sort this out, it's not going to get better. And that didn't happen. So when we look at these guidelines of what is right and wrong and where we're getting this information from at the moment, it's no wonder it's absolutely skewed. And the advice that we get from particularly the NHS at this moment in time is scary. And from the best part, what I can see is we're all putting far too much of the wrong shit inside us. And actually, it's very plainly apparent out there when you look at all of the problems that are going on and a huge cause to them. So there's my rant about that then.
I mean, the benefit is now we're trying to impact on, our kids that are much earlier on in their life and can sort of cover this stuff off now. I think when you're working with kids, that makes it sound so it's like a job, isn't it? But when you're bringing up
Oh, it is
kids,
a job.
you know what kids are like. They like stories, they like role playing and stuff like that. So one of the things that I've really sort of honed in on a little bit is why the reasons certain foods are good for them or certain things are good for them. So with milk, for example, same as you, Ian, we sort of just have whole milk. And you know, my youngest two, the Rachel, the girl, and Noel, the 5-year-old, you know, always like hammered down the milk. They love it. They're always asking for milk. And Dennis, my eldest, plays a lot of football. He broke his arm last November. You know, he's never really had much. I was noticing that he wasn't drinking much at all. So I linked into the fact of what had happened to him with his broken bone, and I sort of, whenever I sort of spoke to them about wanting milk, instead of calling it milk, I started calling it bone juice. So I was like, "Do you want some bone juice, kids?" And they now call it that because they see it as something that strengthens their bones.
Yeah.
So at the start, when I was saying, "Do you want some bone juice?" I'd neck a glass of milk and then suddenly, you know, chase him around like a Incredible Hulk and, you know, try and gamify it a little bit in terms of why it's good for you. And I think I sort of maybe need to just look a little bit more at some of the other food groups and things like that to why something might be good for you, to then create a story around it to make them want to have more of it, because they are quite selective in terms of their diet still. And you know, that bone juice example, if I can relate it to something else and then work away at some other food groups, you know, that might help, certainly when you're dealing with kids.
Yeah.
What I've found is that I think it's so relevant to do that. And what I've found with the testing more is by going back to ground zero and then implementing and dropping little things back in. And last week I got home and the kids were both eating those like rainbow ice lollies. And I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. And we had like a horrible evening. Like it was bath night, it was meltdown. And I said to my wife, I was like, I'm going to throw those in the bin because clearly they can't handle them. But also, out of interest, what did they have for dinner? Because they'd had dinner before I got home from work, and they'd had cheesy pasta basically for dinner. I was like, interesting. Okay. So then what I've worked out is if they have like hex sausages, you know, like the high protein, good sausages.
Chicken sausages. Well.
Yeah, with maybe some broccoli and some potatoes, but they've got protein and good food in them. And then they had some Viennetta for pudding. There was no problem. But what I found was quite interesting was that the pasta and the cheese didn't have necessarily the proteins and the goodness. Then you added a rainbow ice lolly to it, and it was like a recipe for the Tasmanian devil to arrive. Whereas if I hadn't thrown the ice lollies away and I gave them, you know, the good sausages with the good potatoes with the broccoli, I wonder how they would have responded to them then. So it's not just what they have, but it's what have they had prior as well, I think has quite a big impact.
Yeah.
And on Sunday, I did pancakes again, and I was like, right, we've had a really good week. Everyone's been, you know, really good. And it was like, well, we had nothing in the diary. And I was like, we're going to have pancakes this morning. So I made pancakes and I dropped in some scoop of protein into it, just my whey protein. It's basically like powdered egg. And while I was making the mix, I then went upstairs before I put the hot pan on. And I didn't notice, but we've got like a mini pancake cupboard in the corner. My 7-year-old had climbed up on the worktop and gone into the pancake cupboard where all the old toppings used to be. Micro Smarties, marshmallows, maple syrup. I didn't even realize that she'd done it. Anyway, she's pulled the marshmallows out, and her and Lily are sat at the breakfast table smashing marshmallows like they're going out of fashion. And I just saw it and I was like, right, no more of those, you two. Because I don't even got like 3 minutes, but they thought it was hilarious. It was like a funny game. I was like, okay. Anyway, so we made the pancakes and then the morning was a nightmare. And again, I've given them pancakes since, but what they had this time was the marshmallows before the pancakes and the kind of the glucose and the sugar and the bad chemicals had hit them before the pancakes with the good protein had managed to subsidize them. And it was interesting to see because Dave mentions working with Dimitri, but that's one of things that I learned about blood sugar spikes and stuff is how protein can plateau it, so that if you do then go high on the carbs or the glycogen afterwards, you don't get the same drop sugar crash. You know, it's like waking up in the morning and having a glass of Coke versus waking up in the morning and having a protein shake and then an hour later having a glass of Coke. Very different experience over that hour, even though you put the same thing in your body, but it's what you put in first. So that was quite interesting as a tester as well, that I found with the kids.
Well, two questions to both of you. Number one, when your kids, if they have done recently or if they're going to go to kids' parties, you know, generally you know what that's going to look like and what they're going to go for. Like, are you going to prep them differently or try and sort of warn them against certain things, or do you just say go and have fun because it's different? And secondly, when you're doing, you know, you're setting up the kids' parties for your own children, would you look at it any differently from a nutritional perspective and what you put on for the kids that come?
Yeah. So for me, okay, I've made this dead simple. I've made this up based on a lot of other laws that seem to happen. So from what I can see, I give myself, I just run everything on an 80-20 rule. And from what I can see, if I'm good for 80% of the time, I can kind of be pretty bad for 20% of the time. The closer to 100% I get, the better I feel. And the closer to that 80% I get, the less I feel. And if I go 21, I start to notice some problems, and gradually like that. So I think it's amazing that, and I bet, you know, if we even talk through this, we've actually never really given our kids an idea of what it's like to what it's like to feel after you've eaten clean foods for a decent amount of time. Never. None of our kids, I would imagine, would have ever felt what it feels like to feel clean after eating something really good and your body just absorbs the shit out of it, rather than try and break down everything that's in there and separate it and do all of this good stuff. And yeah, and that is strange. So now I believe that we're trying to turn this round. We've taught them exactly how not to eat for God knows how many years, depending on how old our children are. And now we're trying to turn that round, and it's a nightmare. But to answer your question, if Harley goes to a party, crack on, mate. Let your hair down. You deserve it. Because the rest of the time, you ain't eating that shit. If somebody comes to my house, I will make it as nice as I can. I'll try and keep it to the 80% rule if I can, without making him look like an absolute nerd and getting bullied in school. So I will monitor it, but there'll be lots of fruits on there. There'll be lots of choices that I'm trying to make it as good as I possibly can do. However, again, look, as long as it fits in with this 20%, eat what you want, crack on.
Yeah. We've got Grace's 8th birthday party on Saturday at our house.
Yeah.
She's 8 on Monday, and she's got 7 of her mates coming over to our garden for a silent disco. So we'll set up with, you know, they get their headphones and their own playlist and stuff like that. And we've actually been discussing it. So same as what Dave said, is we've got, you know, the kids love like cucumber sticks and carrot sticks and stuff like that. There's going to be some packets of crisps. There's going to be some cocktail sausages. There's going to be strawberries. You know, there's going to be some Baby Bells. You know, there will be. But what we've tried to do is have like party food. Grace doesn't get ridiculed on Monday, but at the same time, kind of make it fun and enjoyable. And she wants a rainbow cake. You know, you can get them from M&S, these rainbow cakes, and they taste unbelievable. I'm not surprised she wants one and so it's like the bit of balance. We're trying to sort of work through the party food, but how you dress up food makes a big impact to kids as well. And I also think one thing that I've really noticed, especially with the older one, is her being involved in creating the food. So both of my kids love pizza, especially the older one, big pizza fan. And rather than just getting a pizza from Tesco's or Lidl or whatever, even in the first week, I stripped it right down to, I bought the pizza bases. We nutri-blended our own pasta sauce. So with like neat tomatoes and puree and oregano, and we made our own pasta sauce, and then had mozzarella cheese, had the pasta bowl, had them with the baking trays with their own bases, and they made their own pizzas. So even little things like that. And then Grace just loves it. She's like, I made this, I created it. And now she wants to get involved in like making the pancakes on the weekend she wanted to do. But she couldn't sit still because she was hyped up on marshmallows. But trying to get them involved in cooking as well. Like my mum was quite good at getting me involved in cooking. So I can cook, whereas my wife can't really cook for shit. And it's like those little things of just getting them involved in stuff, like where you're talking about bone juice is amazing. And I've found hydration is another talking point, especially now it's hit summer. Kids are not really conscious of drinking water.
No.
And I've actually told the teacher twice this year that it was unacceptable what she was coming home in her water bottle, because I spoke to Grace about it, and she'd sometimes come home with a full water bottle. And for me, that's unacceptable. And I found out that the kids are not allowed to have the water bottles on the classroom tables, which again, for me, just seems silly. But I get they've got a lot of stuff going on. They don't want to knock them over, whatever. They've got their rules, fine. But I said to her teacher, she's basically anemic. She has an iron deficiency. So if she's not hydrated, she will not be able to focus. And you can see it when she's not hydrated. She can't focus on what she's doing. She can't have a conversation with you. It's really important. And I think that's something that parents are probably need to be more aware of. Some are amazing. They've always got their water bottles on them, but hydration as well is a big thing, you know, especially for kids that are growing.
It's massive. I mean, based on everything we're saying here now, I suppose if I was listening to this, I'd be thinking, all right, yeah, sounds all great. So what should we be putting on these plates? And I think it can be very, very simple, to be honest with you. Especially if you go to my regime and you're like, oh, I would cut all the processed shit out and we're really good. But even then, if you cut all the processed stuff out, there's still rules and regulations you've got to follow. You know, you've got to make sure that your plate is orchestrated in the right kind of way so that you can give your body the nutrients that it needs. So on each plate, again, I try to balance it. Try to make sure there's 3 things on the plate and not a 4th. So no processed food on the plate, hopefully. Then we're going to need lots of veggies, green veggies. We're going to need the fiber and all the nutrients that the veggies give us. So plenty of veggies in there. The green veggies are fantastic. Broccoli's fantastic. Spinach is fantastic. High iron level foods are brilliant for your veggie side of things. Then we're going to look at other parts of veggies and potentially carbs. I would keep this, honestly, unless you're doing ridiculous amounts of sports, I would be keeping it to about 20% of your plate. No more than 20% carbs on a plate, which I know throws out the window these big pasta teas that we're giving the kids. But if you actually look at how much sugar is in this pasta and what effect it's having on them, you may re-look at it. So protein, carbohydrates, and veggie and fiber. If you can make your plate 40% protein, 40% fiber and veggies, and 20% carbohydrates, whether that's potatoes, a little bit of bread. Ideally, avoid the bread because it's processed. But if you can't, it's like Harley can have a burger, because that bun on a burger, as long as he's got nice, proper, we home make the burgers as well. So it's straight from mincemeat. Burger, a little bit of cheese on there is not too bad. Veggies, he's got his tomato, his lettuce, cucumber. And then again, we avoid chips with him, but he quite likes, like, you know, the carrot sticks and more so like cucumber sticks and tomato and bits and bobs like that. But we try and get as much green veg down him as well. He doesn't like it, and it is hard. I will say it's not easy, guys, this stuff. It's not. But I do believe that you will get the dividends. If you put the work in, it's just going to show in the relationships you have, in the way the kids are, the way you are. It's just going to absolutely shine through. But yeah, if you're looking at a plate, for me, and I'd love to hear what your experience of this, guys, is, but I'd be limiting the carbohydrates to 20% on the plate, making sure they're getting enough clean protein and enough veggies, you know. And one of the easiest ways to look at it is make sure there's plenty of colour on your plate. There's plenty of colour on your plate, you're doing all right. And that's as simple as I can put it.
I think we've tried to sort of look at it piece at a time and start with a breakfast. Lunch sort of is generally taken care of in school time, and then it's the 2 ends of the day really. So from a breakfast standpoint, we've sort of gone straight in with the yogurt and fruit vibes and trying to mix the types of fruits up and get different coloured fruits. I think we need to go a step further and just sort of add to that variety. Just hearing you both speak and hearing Ian talk about the pizza making and getting the kids involved, I'm already thinking around omelette. You know, can you get an omelette? Can you put out some peppers, some different coloured things, and ask what they want to put in their omelette? You know, we sometimes see that on holiday when we go and sort
Amazing.
of food from there. So already I'm thinking, okay, that could be something. And just so the sourdough bread, obviously Ian's mentioned that before, but again, it's there's no excuse for certainly ourselves not to go and get that involved. And it's just trying to all we need is the variety now of type of breakfast, and if because we're trying to control starting the day off right, if we can, then we'll have to look at dinners a little bit more after that.
Yeah,
with the dinners and the food as well. And I think there'll probably be some people listening going, there's not a lot of options there. And I think what's probably also worth debunking almost is that most kids under 10 probably only consistently have 4 to 6 styles of meal anyway, because they're quite fussy. So it's not like a kid is 7 years old and they've got a different meal on their plate every evening of a month, because that's not happening. And if they go out for dinner and you go to a pub or wherever you go for food and they get the kids menu, they probably only pick one of 2 things for the last year of their life as well. So it's also now going, right, well, that's what they did have. That was their 6 or 7 things they did have. What's the new 6 or 7 things? And accepting the fact that variety is not a big part of a kid's life. They will, if they like a packet of crisps, they're either a mini cheddars, a Quavers, or a ready salted team. That's all they have every time they have a packet of crisps for a whole year. Because kids are a bit funny like that. So I think it's also taking the pressure off a little bit to go, okay, well, if they have sourdough and strawberries and a banana every morning for 6 weeks with the odd dip and change here, well, that's all right. That's okay, because it's better than having Cheerios every morning.
Improvement is going to help.
Exactly.
I think we've again, there'll be people, I suppose, listening to this and thinking, holistically it sounds great, but time poor, maybe single parent, different things, different scenarios where thinking, oh God, feeling quite overwhelmed. Is that possible? Ultimately some of these things, there is an expense to some things, but then also, a lot of what we're involved with the fruit and the yogurt, or the toast, it doesn't take any longer than, or too much longer than putting some sort of cereal in a bowl, waiting for that to, form, and then, getting on with breakfast. So it doesn't actually take that long. It surprised me. It just, the idea of it sounded overwhelming. Actually, it's been quite good.
It does. I think another thing as well is you can prep for it. So when you know what are good foods, because it is a bit laborious having to cook things. The other thing with a lot of the foods we eat is it's convenient. It's so much easier to just whack a sandwich together and get it down than it is to start getting pans out, chopping boards, chopping stuff up and everything else. And I get that. But you can prep for this. So what we'll do in our household is Claire goes to Aldi, pack of butcher's sausages. We try and make sure that the pork content is really, really high. The higher the pork content, effectively, the better it's going to be for you, to make it easy again. So, I know in Aldi, anything above 95% is where I'd be looking at. But yeah, Claire will do a 10-pack of sausages, puts them in the oven. They then go into a Tupperware tub. 6 eggs. We boil the 6 eggs. We've managed to figure out a way of boiling them so that they're still yolky, and we can just heat them up in hot water afterwards and put them on the plate. Broccoli will last 3 days cooked in the fridge. We do a big bag. You buy the bag of tender stem broccoli, because the old school is just like old school as shit now, so no one ever eats that broccoli anymore. Only the tender stem. But you buy a bag of tender stem broccoli, get that, bring it up to the boil, pretty much cook it, put it in the fridge. It'll stay there for a couple of days and you can reheat it. And it's about thinking about what can you have on these meals. Rice, we cook a cup of rice to 2 cups of water, probably every 4 days. We've always got rice. I go in the fridge, I can knock up pretty much a full English breakfast within minutes. But the kids can too. So if the kids, Harley doesn't like boiled eggs on their own, but he likes chucky egg, or he'll put it in. He'll just put a bit of butter in a cup, mix it together. He's got scrambled egg. He's happy with that. Maybe a sausage before he goes to school. Bit of fruit. On the fruits in the mornings, berries are great. Berries are absolutely fantastic. Really low in fructose, high in fiber, high in all the good stuff. But what it's about is prepping. So I open my fridges and I've got tubs. I've got a tub of sausages. I've got a tub of eggs. I've got some chicken cooked on one side. I've got my veggies. I even chop down like butternut squash, mix it with some seeds, maybe a bit of feta cheese on it. And it's all there. And we literally just scoop it out. And if you see the video that we played today, which was the promo for this particular podcast, there is a picture of the breakfast itself, which took me no longer than a minute to put together. So you can prep these things. It's about getting everybody on board in the household. I think that's probably the hardest one. If you've got people who are not following this regime, I think it's nice to get all on board. And like Alex said before, we're controlling 2 meals of the day. It's our responsibility to ensure that, we're providing the right foods, because we don't have a lot of control of what they eat in school. And I can pretty much guarantee you now, it ain't going to follow my regime.
No. Ian,
And I think,
oh God,
yeah.
so you go.
I was just going to say this morning was quite eye-opening because just a quick story for you. So I just got out of the sauna. So I was sat in the gym and I was just checking my phone, just waiting for the body to stop being so hot. And these 2 guys walked in and they were chatting diet basically. And they were just saying, back in the gym, how hard it is to keep the weight off and feel good. And one of them said, well, we're kind of 46 and 47 now, so this is never going to go. And they sort of held their tire, their tummy. And the other one kind of said, yeah, well, all we can do is keep moving, and effectively it's made in the kitchen, isn't it? But what they were effectively talking about was, at that age of adult life, such a poor level of education that they'd had themselves. These guys were overweight and unhealthy, and fair play to them. They're in the gym at 10:30 on a Tuesday morning trying to do something about it. But they're in the gym because they were about to go on the cross trainer and then have a sauna. And, they were talking about having a couple of beers tonight for the England game. Makes total sense. But the lack of education that they had, that generation, which is our generation-ish, then gets relayed back to the kids. So I also think, if you're a parent listening, there's a responsibility to educate yourself so that the next generation that is going to have convenience food, because that's what we've been having. We're in this generation where convenience food, we're now learning about the bad stuff. But, when we were growing up, probably not when we were growing up, probably more in our 20s is where it got really bad, like where, the real bad margarine, Frankfurter sort of stuff that came out that no one knew was bad. Now we kind of do know the good and the bad, like Dave says. So I think we've just got a bit of a responsibility to make sure that we're educating our kids on the good stuff. If it takes a little bit more time to make it and you make it together as a family, it's probably going to be better than something that goes in the microwave that you sit on the sofa on your own watching Teletubbies or whatever, while someone else eats something else. I don't know if you've ever seen the microscope clip of a Frankfurter sliced, and when it goes, the telegraphic lens goes right into the Frankfurter, and seen the little worms and stuff that are
Bugs in
weaving
it.
around, like worms, hairs, plastic.
Yeah.
I've never eaten a Frankfurter since. It will put you off it for life. It's horrendous.
It's literally like it's made
Horrible.
out of pigs' arseholes or something. It's like minging stuff.
Brutal. Yeah.
Just before we wrap up, what's the one food that you still would love to get into your kids' diet that they're not consuming, whether they don't want to or you've not yet got to it? What do you reckon, Ian? First up.
I would love my older one to get onto eggs. She won't eat eggs. I'd love my older one. The younger one loves eggs. I like a fried egg wrap, which I know is a bit weird, but I like it. 3 eggs in a wrap, high protein, good to go. And my younger one will steal it off me and eat it in my face and laugh at me. But the other one won't. So I'd love to get eggs into my older one's diet. the 3-year-old, we're struggling a little bit with generally sort of wanting to eat anything at the moment. She's sort of learned that like a snack is like an easy fix. So she's like, I can have a snack. She's just turned 3, and yeah, so it's getting her back in the habit of like meal times and stuff. But eggs would be the one staple, I would say.
Dave, anything missing for you at the moment, or it sounds like
Eggs, great. We're there. We're pretty much there. If anything, it would be to actually a bit more on the meat side for Harley. I struggle. He's just not. He's not a veggie, but he's just not interested in meat. He loves vegetables. He always has been a bit of a weird kid with fruits, and he's always been relatively healthy in what he's eaten. But yeah, probably a bit more meat into him, to be fair, like a bit of steak or something. He has an odd bit of chicken here and then, bit of sausage. Loves his mince meat with burgers and like pasta sauces, spaghetti bolognese, and stuff like that. But yeah, probably steak.
I'd to be fair, Ian, you took the word away from me, so I was going to say eggs. I think there's a couple of studies I've been made aware of, one of which I heard on another podcast, and just another I sort of looked up. But there was one study around eggs from the University of Eastern Finland's, where they were doing nutrition research, and it was found that an egg a day is beneficial for brain function. So in terms of going a bit more technical than that, I'd need to sort of look into the study a bit more. But just hearing that something could be good for brain function, I mean, that has me straight away. And the other study was a number of studies actually on a control group around how egg actually can give children an increase in height, so up to 0.5 centimeters. So again, not huge amounts, but still there's obviously a benefit to them in terms of how they develop based on consuming eggs as well. So that for me is I've just got to come up with a story now. I've got bone juice.
Yeah.
Maybe it's yeah, I'll need you got a good word for me that I can take home tonight for eggs?
I haven't got necessarily a good word, but
Chicken coop.
I think what
Good
people
night.
have to remember with an egg, in that one small capsule, has got every nutrient needed to create life, to create an actual life in that one shell. And someone said that to me, and I was like, Jesus, yeah, that's the only thing that you can say. Like that whole thing, it's only small. It's got everything needed to create an actual life. That's how much goodness is actually in there. And I think it's worth spending the extra 30, 40p and getting the really yellow proper free range, not a coop, an actual proper, when you've got a good egg because it's like potent orange in the yolk, and it's worth the extra 30, 40p on the pack of 6 for that, basically. But
we've got no excuse. My father-in-law has chickens and we get eggs delivered to us. It's just that me and Jen are the only ones that eat them. So it's there. The produce is there. That's the next project.
Yeah.
Eggs.
Teaching a child to crack an egg could be the experience, to be honest, because cracking things like that for kids is quite fun. So actually just going, right, accepting the fact you're going to ruin a load of eggs and it's going to get gunky, but teaching your kids together in a row how to actually crack an egg into a bowl without getting shell in it or popping the egg is quite a fun game for kids to go through. And if they do it, they get to cook it and eat it. That might be the game to bring back round. It could be like a reward of making the egg with no shell and not popping it, basically. So it's sort of you flip it on its head a little bit.
Yeah, good shout.
Yeah,
Love that. Bit of scrambled eggs there. They can whisk it around in the thing. There's loads for them to do then, isn't there? And it's really weird when the kids actually do. We noticed it years and years ago when my daughters were a lot younger. But yeah, we try and make something for them, weren't interested. Fancy cooking this? No matter what it was, they would try it afterwards because they've made it. You definitely try and getting them involved is a winner.
It's the old teach a man to fish kind of analogy, isn't it? Rather than just keep delivering stuff to them, get them involved. That will stick with them for life, and they'll pass that on to the next generation. So that's the message, really, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah, great episode. I mean, it's worth kind of just highlighting we're not professional like nutritionists. So, these are our experiences, our views, our opinions, our own research and our own practice and trials. Don't hold us to it, but that's why we wanted to get it out there, because we think it's relevant for people listening to try some of these things. And everybody is different, every child is different, so have a play around with kind of what works in breakfasts and dinner times and on the weekends with your kids, and let us know in the group your experience. You know, if you do a test run for a week, share your experience, create the video, drop it in the Facebook group. You know, it's an exclusive group. We only accept and decline members into there. There's less than 300 people, so it's a confidential place. If you do want to put it in there, the whole world won't see it. So yeah, great episode, gents, and I've really enjoyed it. Got a few little tips from both of you there for myself. Bone juice being one of them.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Brilliant.
Right, have a good one, gents.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Yeah.